POV. In the limo, I pulled Heather to me, and she came willingly. I loved the tingles that went through me holding her in my arms where she belonged. I hope to have more moments like this, where she was content to be in my arms and in my company. I felt we were starting to get somewhere at last. I was more comfortable with her at the moment. It was like she had let her guard down and was just enjoying what attention I was giving her, and I had a lot I wanted to give her. We arrived at the restaurant way too soon. I wanted to stay holding her longer. It was my new happy place. Reluctantly, I removed my arms from around her and climbed out of the limo. I almost had to demand Jerry to take some time off while we ate. I knew he had family nearby, and he could go spend time with them till we needed him to return. Opening the door, I let Heather in first, and before I was even fully inside, a squeal hit my ears. I looked at the person who squealed, and she was headed straight for Heather. I took a step forward in an attempt to reach Heather first and protect her, but Heather had moved to the side away from me, and the squealing woman launched herself into Heather's arms, and to my shock, Heather effortlessly swung the girl around into a few circles, all the while the girl continued to squeal and giggle. The way Heather had caught the girl showed that it was not the first time Heather had been jumped on like that by that girl. A number of people who to me smelt like the girl's family came rushing out from the back and looked at Heather and this girl with shock and then a smile. Most turned around and headed back the way they came, but an older-looking man and woman who looked like an older version of the girl in Heather's arms waited by the counter, watching the two girls interact, and then looked at me with mirth. The man, I later learned, was the squealer's father, and he had growled at Magnolia and told her that Heather did have the special table, and together they left me behind and walked off to the room. I should feel bad for being forgotten, but Magnolia's father kept apologizing and promising better behavior next time, and walked with me to the room. I watched Heather interacting with this girl, and I got to see a new side to Heather, and I loved what I was seeing. Magnolia gave us our menu and told us that a guy named Pete would be serving us, and left us to head back to the front of the restaurant, and I picked up the menu and briefly looked at it. Heather, I thought you said this restaurant was not family. I was still unsure about the drama at the door, and that squealing Magnolia. Magnolia is one of my girlfriends that I have been friends with all through school. She is not family in blood, but to me she is my family, and you did not name the restaurant, just that it was French, and I know of at least 3 restaurants we could have been going to. Heather answered defiantly, and I knew she was right. I did not name the place we were going to eat, and I should not have done, as if I was accusing her of lying. I did not mean it that way. Sorry, Heather. I was shocked by our entrance performance. Please forgive me if it sounded like I was accusing you of lying. I pleaded with her. Oh, it's fine. I think I was just as shocked as you. I did not know Magnolia was working today. I thought she said she was going out with the girls tonight. Heather answers, looking over at the door as if she could see through it to Magnolia, and this Heather before me was a different girl to the one I had seen since she walked into the castle to defy the order of the king and queen and was identified as my mate. I liked this girl, and I hoped this one I am seeing now will stay around a little longer. Pete walked in with a beaming smile as he looked at Heather. Hi, Heather. That was a loud welcome to our restaurant. He said with a chuckle, and Heather stood up and gave him a hug. A small growl came out of my mouth. Before I could hold it back, Pete was an unmated male and was holding my mate in his arms, and his face was full of love. What male would not growl at that display? Heather turns and looks at me with a grin. Mason, this is Pete, Magnolia's brother. Pete, this is my mate, Mason. Heather introduces him, and I relax after the introduction, and he steps towards me and gives me an unexpected hug. Welcome! A friend of Heather is a friend of ours. He steps back and looks at Heather again, his face open and happy. Have you decided what you would like to order? Pete asked as he filled our glasses with ice and water. The ice clinks on the side glass as it drops into the receptacle, and I find I'm waiting to see what Heather does next. instead of taking the lead as I would normally do. This feeling was new to me, and I looked up at her and saw she was watching me. I gave her a nod. "Pete, can I have the chicken cordon bleu, please?" Closing the menu and placing it back on the table, I was not sure if she had actually read the menu or opened it up for appearance. "Roast vegetable or salad with that?" Pete sounded like he was holding in a laugh as he asked the question, as if he knew what Heather was about to say. "Since when have I ever eaten a salad here?" she counters with a laugh. Heather's laugh at Pete caused his smile to brighten even more. "Your Highness?" Pete looked at me with expectant eyes, and the grin never left his face. "Beef bourguignon, please." "Thank you," Pete said with a bow and continued. "I know Heather will want coffee. Would you prefer a wine with your meal or coffee like this uncultured woman?" He said with a chuckle. "Hey, I'm not uncultured. I just don't like alcohol. It does not agree with me. But if you want the meal spewed back onto the table after we have finished, then I am okay to have—" "Stop!" Pete held his hand up. "I got the picture." His face looked horrified at the image she painted on his mind. I could not hold it back any longer, watching as the two bickered away at each other, and I roared out in laughter. Heather and Pete both turned to look at me with shocked expressions, and that just made me laugh all the more. Boy, it was good to have a laugh at last. "Coffee for me too, please," I asked once I got myself under control. Once Pete left, I looked at Heather and felt I could not resist the chance to give one back to her. "Heather, if it costs me a week each time I am touched or have a woman's scent on me, should I not get a week taken off of the trial for you being handled by an unmated man?" Heather's mouth dropped open, and her eyes widened, and for a few minutes she just stared, unblinking at me. Then she burst out laughing at the top of her voice, and I tried hard not to join her, but it was infectious, and soon we were both laughing. We were still chuckling away, not yet settled, when Pete burst through the door with our meals and stopped dead in his tracks as he took in our laughing state. And that was all it took for Heather to burst back into fits of giggles. Pete placed the food on the table and left without a word, though his face was full of smiles, and I was sure he would report back to the kitchen what he had just seen. "Yes, I guess that is fair. You did not know who Pete was, and, well, he's not family blood, so it is a strange man's scent on me, and if it was the other way around, I would have added a week, so okay, you can have a week off our trial." I let out a long breath and felt good inside. Maybe there is a chance to reduce this trial quicker. I just need to get more opportunities like this one.
Blush. "42. Pete and Magnolia and the rest of their family are really good friends of mine, and I honestly did not think how it would look when I returned his hug. And we had a little back and forth banter, picking on each other as we normally would. It had not occurred to me how it may appear until I heard the low growl from Mason and realized I should quickly explain who Pete was. When Pete left to put in our order, it surprised me that Mason asked for a week off of the trial, and I had to chuckle to myself. If it was the other way around, I would have added a week. So, with a happy heart, I gave him a week off the trial. It was only fair after all. The meal was tasty, as I expected, and I nearly wet my panties when Mason groaned in appreciation of the food. And I wondered if I could get that same moan from him for some other reason. I liked the sound of it. It went all the way to my core and warmed me up in a way I had never been warmed before. And I felt the heat rise in my cheeks, and I hoped Mason did not notice my unexplained sudden blush. We chatted amicably all throughout the meal, and it was nice to just sit and talk with Mason and not feel any pressure. He asked a lot of questions.
What is your favorite color?
Blue. Yours?
Black was, but I think blue has now started to be my favorite. Because of your eyes. They are so beautiful. Do you have a hobby?
Mason suddenly changed the subject after commenting on my eyes and flirting with me a little. Maybe he realized where he was heading with his comments, and so changed the subject. Interesting. Not really. I'm kept way too busy to do anything more. A hobby is when you have free time, don't you think? And you? Hobbies? I belatedly added.
Same. What do you do on your quiet days? When you're not working somewhere? What do you do?
Mason was definitely getting more relaxed now and asking better questions and sharing. Though I think he just double asked the same question. Maybe it's a bit of nerves? I like to run in the woods in my wolf form and train, though I haven't had much time to do either lately. My wolf had nagged me about running in wolf form so she could meet her mate and rub herself all over him, and I wondered if she wanted more than that.
I love to train. You could join me in the gym and we can work together. Maybe run together too. When do you run?
I was so excited at the thought of getting my mate in the gym, all hot and sweaty, and finally seeing him out of his suit, and something less restrictive, and showing off all those muscles. I have had glimpses of it. I almost forgot the question. When I have time, I hope to run on Saturday. I have nothing planned at the moment, I said, and my wolf reminded me again that she needed to have a chance to run with her mate too. I was starting to get pissed off by my wolf's constant nagging.
Then I'll come and get you at, say, 8 a.m., and we can go to the falls and run through the woods out there and have a picnic lunch. How does that sound?
Mason answered, and I felt relieved that the next date would be something simple. And my wolf almost growled out loud with excitement. Meeting her mate and spending time running together at last? Someone was listening to her. That sounds perfect, Mason. Are you sure you can spare the time? I looked at Mason hopefully.
I'll make the time. Don't you worry about that. I'll bring a picnic basket and we can make a day of it. And maybe later we can go out and see a movie or something. Would you like that?
He sounded so optimistic. A movie? Wow, I can't remember the last time I went to the movies. We normally get the DVD play to make a movie night at home, I replied, wondering if I would like to go out for a movie. All those people queuing up to get in. That does not sound like fun to me.
Does that mean you would rather come to the castle and watch a movie in our theater room and risk others joining us?
Mason did not sound happier at that suggestion. Mason made that sound like a bad thing, and I had to think about that. Instead of answering, I continued to eat my meal. I didn't want it to go cold. Pete came in shortly after Mason asked the question, and I had an excuse to prolong my answer.
Would you like me to bring in the dessert list?
Pete looked like he had just seen something he shouldn't, and was eager to go report it back to the troops. I burst out into a chuckle, and both Pete and Mason looked at me with the same frown, which made me laugh even harder. I don't need a menu. Can I have the lemon cheesecake, please? With ice cream, not whipped cream, and another coffee, I answered, and Pete nodded. He knew what I would say before it even came out my mouth.
Mason?
Pete asked, and I was not sure if he was asking if he wanted the dessert menu or something else.
Make that too. That cheesecake sounds delicious,
Mason answered. Pete collected the empty plates and left the room.
So, movie night?
Mason pushed, and I really had to think about how I felt about either option. How about my place? We have movies. After I suggested that, I thought about who might be home on a Saturday night. And I think it's most likely no one.
You don't like the castle idea?
He pushed. Will your brothers be there? They probably would be going out too, like the twins will be. And who knows what my brothers will be up to.
It's a Saturday night. They normally go clubbing. We can have dinner with my folks, and then go to the theater room. At most, you might have my mom and dad for a little while, depending on the movie you choose, but my brothers should be out. Oh, I guess you might have Sabrina if she's up to it, but she's not really doing well with the pregnancy.
Mason looked sad as he said this, and I wondered if it was a hard pregnancy or if something else was going on with her. Okay, dinner and a movie at your place on Saturday. Can I go in jeans and a shirt? That way I don't need to bring a change of clothes to our picnic. Or will you require me to dress up for dinner?
Wear anything you like. We don't get dressed up for family dinners, only when we have important guests and when we're trying to impress.
I let out a breath I did not know I was holding in relief of not having to dress up for another dinner meal.
POV. The meal went well, or so I thought. The conversation seemed to flow and we had a lot of laughs along the way. We had exchanged a lot of information about our likes and dislikes, and I was surprised that we shared a number of the same likes and dislikes, more than I had expected, and finding out more about Heather was not so hard as I thought it would be. Heather made it fun. While getting to know each other, in some ways she did most of the conversation direction, which was a relief for me as I was unsure how to ask some of the more sensitive questions, and some of her questions just seemed to naturally lead to the next. We gelled together so well, at least from my perspective. Not once did it look like she was uncomfortable in my company. The cheesecake was delicious, and the last of our dinner together went smoothly. Pete came by a few times to check if we needed anything, but for the most part, left us alone. Then, just before we were about to leave, Magnolia came into our room. She was all excited about some party she was about to go to and tried to talk us into joining her. I did not want to go, and Heather did not look all that enthused either. We had had such a good evening so far, and I did not want to spoil it by going to some party. We were saved from having to refuse a night out with Magnolia when Magnolia's mother came in, telling her the taxi had arrived and to get out of there before she gave her dishes to do. With that, Magnolia's face turned pale, and she almost ran out of the door without even saying goodbye. We looked at each other and then laughed. Magnolia's mum looked at us and smiled. I am sure she knew what her daughter was trying to do, and pushed her out the door before we had to embarrass ourselves. After a little argument with Magnolia's mum about the bill, we finally paid most of it. They wanted to give it to us, on the house, but both Heather and I disagreed, and we paid for the meal at a discounted rate instead. It took almost 10 minutes of arguments to reach that agreement, but it was worth it, just seeing Heather fighting on my side for a change. Jerry took us the long way to Heather's house, and I began to wonder if I could talk her into staying at the castle with me, even if it was in a separate room. I will have to save that for another day. This one was too perfect for me to spoil it with something I am sure she would fight me on. Heather was snuggled up against me on the ride home. I had my arm over her shoulder and her head resting on my chest. I was rubbing her arm gently and kissing her hair every now and then. It was such a nice way to finish the night off, snuggling up with my mate. Even my wolf was curled up and was content being with his mate for a change. And it was good not fighting with him about our mate, and together we enjoyed feeling the tingles running through my body. I could hardly wait to mark her and mate with her and be about to snuggle up like this all the time. I think Heather was asleep by the time we reached her home. I know she had a hard day with the reaction to whatever that person did at the laboratory. Although she hid it well, Mum had warned me about how bruised her arm was, and to be careful with her. I was hoping, with her snuggled up against me, that maybe a bit of our mate bond would have sped up her healing. I wonder if anyone else had a reaction to the blood taking at the labs. We'll have to ask Dad about that. When I asked Heather about why she was so sick from the testing, she said that her wolf could not help heal it, for some reason, and her mum had thought it was a bad reaction to something the lab used on her arm to clean the area, and the wolf was suffering from it as well. Though that sounds crazy, I can't argue after hearing about how bad her arm was and that she had spent the day in bed. "Heather, you are home," I whispered and kissed her forehead gently. She snuggled in closer to me, and I guess she was deeper asleep than I thought. Jerry opened the door and I carefully maneuvered myself out of the car and lifted her into my arms and headed to the front door of her home. Jerry raced ahead and knocked on the door. By the time I reached the door, it had opened, and Heather's mum looked shocked to see me carrying a sleeping Heather in my arms. "It is okay, she is asleep. I think it was a long night for her." Her mum nodded and led me into the house, and as I passed the lounge room, I saw Heather's dad look over at us with concern, but did not get up. I presumed Heather's mum had told him Heather was sleeping. I followed her up the stairs and down the hallway. Pictures of the family were hung on the walls. Halfway down, on the left-hand side of the hallway, Jane opened a door and gestured me in. As I entered the room, a strong scent of my mate hit me, and I knew this was her room. Jane rushed to the bed and pulled the blankets back, and I laid her down on the bed gently, and I leaned down and kissed her cheek before stepping back so Jane could take over. As I left the room, I looked over and saw Jane removing her shoes. I quickly looked around the room, and it was just how I pictured how her room would be. No real clutter, other than the computer and books, a very neat and tidy room. The walls and bedding and curtains were in tones of blue and purple and hints of green, just as I expected them to be. Ben greeted me at the bottom of the stairs and led me into the lounge room and softly closed the door. "What happened?" Ben asked with concern on his face. "She fell asleep on the way home." I was not sure what he had expected me to say. He nodded and looked like he was deep in thought for a moment, and then looked back up at me with a small smile. "Thank you for looking after her. You must have worn her out." He was asking for more information without actually asking it straight out. We went to the art exhibition, then to a restaurant. We ate and she fell asleep on the way home. "By the way, Tyler's picture is amazing. He's a talented artist," I said, hoping this time he got the message. I had done nothing to harm his girl. That got his face to beam with pride. "That he is, though he put a lot of hours into that picture. It is good to hear such pleasing reviews. I'm sure he will be happy to hear you say that. He has a lot of respect for you." This surprised me, but I was glad I had at least one member of the family on my side. "Thank you. You can tell him for me how impressed I was when I saw it. I stood for some time staring at it. I was that taken with it," I reassured him. "Well, good night then. And again, thank you for carrying Heather inside and allowing her to sleep." I shook his hand and wondered what he had expected. Me to shake her awake and demand she walk inside. She is my mate. Holding her in my arms was not a chore. I got the feeling they did not have a very high opinion of me, or maybe it was my past reputation. though they are honored that one of their children has a royal mate and made a fuss about it with the alpha in the party. I think maybe they would have preferred one of the twins to be our mate and not their special innocent one. I walked to the limo and the waiting Jerry, his face soft with mirth, and I nodded to him and climbed in, wondering how I was going to win the respect of Heather's parents. And here I thought all my troubles were winning over Heather. It never occurred to me that her parents had doubts, or maybe they had heard about the woman jumping at me at the club. Could that be it?
Shone brightly on my face, and I scrunched up my eyes and pulled the covers to hide my face from the sun. Sun? Why do I have sun in my face? Shit! I sat up so fast, my head spun. The sun was up. I was in my own bed. The relief I felt when I realized it was my own bed surprised me. And then I started to panic again as I hunted for my phone to find out the time. Shit. It was 10 o'clock. I was 2 hours late for work. I wonder how the Queen will be with me showing up this late to work. I hope she won't be too cranky and growl at me too much. I scramble out of bed, tripping on the sheets that were tangled around my feet, doing a hop and scrambling as I tried to untangle my feet and hop to the bathroom as quickly as I could. In the end, I fell on my ass and had to untangle the sheets from my feet. How they got that tangled up was a mystery to me. Once my feet were free from their entrapment, I scrambled back up and hit the quickest shower in history. I did not even wet my hair, just a quick body wash. Glancing at my arms had me do a double take at their appearance. My arms had healed almost overnight. I could not believe how they had improved so fast. I expected bruised arms for a few more days. My wolf never healed this quickly when I've had injections or blood work before. This was new, and I was glad to see the bruises were practically gone. Throwing on the first thing I found in my wardrobe, I flew downstairs, 2 at a time. I called Jerry.
Jerry here?
I heard his calming voice, and I breathed in a deep breath. Jerry, can you come and get me? I kinda slept in, I said in a flustered voice.
Sure. It'll be around 10 minutes,
he replied politely, as he always did. Perfect. That will give me time to grab something to eat, and hopefully a coffee, I replied, rushing to the kitchen. I could hear Jerry chuckling as he hung up the phone, and I knew I had made his day. Mom was in the kitchen, sitting at the table, reading some emails on her laptop. She looked up at me surprised as I entered the room. Hey, Mom. Morning, Heather. The coffee pot is fresh. How are you this morning? She sounded concerned. Good. I called Jerry. He'll be here in about 10 minutes. Just grabbing something to eat and coffee, I said, heading to the fridge to see what leftovers were in there. How are your arms today? Mom was not going to let me avoid talking. I was hungry, damn it! I took a deep breath and calmed my rushing nerves about being late and took the time to talk to Mom as she needed to hear I was fine. I rolled up my sleeves and showed her. She got out of her seat and rushed around to me, grabbing my arm and ran a finger over the area that was purple yesterday. Wow. Mason said he hoped the mate bond would heal you and was looking forward to see if it worked. Mason was the reason for the quicker healing? My arms are almost back to normal. Is this because of the mate bond? I asked incredulously, and all muddled up. Yes, your father can heal me quicker using our mate bond, It's a common ability mates have helping to heal each other. We need our mates most during pup birth. They can help us with the pain and the healing after the pup is born. So remember that when you start having pups. I was hoping Mason would pick up his mate bond ability to heal you, and it seems he had. It confused me about this wolf's ability, but I wasn't going to question Mom. If she said it was normal for us, Mom was probably right. She said she investigated it years ago, but there was little information on the healing wolf's ability. I asked how it was that the wolf could not heal this injury, but she could not answer that either. Only that it was a gift from the goddess, and she was the one who put it on the wolf and not us. Mom and her strong support of the goddess made most of us look bad for not thanking the goddess often enough for the abilities the wolf gives us. Our quick healing, great eyesight, and hearing, and most of the time, never getting sick. Our healing is usually needed when we have been attacked, and the wounds are too great for the wolf to heal quickly. After a quick bite to eat, and downing at least 2 cups of coffee really quickly, I headed out the door, in time to see Jerry pulling up in the driveway. "Morning, sleepyhead." Jerry chuckled at me as he climbed out of the limo and rushed around to open the door for me. "Hi, Jerry. Sorry for the late call. I hope you did not sit out here too long waiting for me to come out." I was worried Jerry had sat out there for ages waiting for me to come out while I was still sleeping. "Don't worry. After dropping you off last night, Mason talked to your mother, and she was going to call us if you were awake, so I did not come here this morning." "Thank you, Mother," I thought to myself. "You are the best." We pulled up at the castle, and Jerry opened the door for me. His smiling face stared expectantly at me. I could not help but give him a big smile back. "You will be fine. Don't worry. The queen will not bite. She will understand." He patted me on my back, and I turned and gave him an unexpected hug, and rushed up the stairs to face the queen for being over 2 hours late.